Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Clipboard Confessional with Bobby and I, one of your hosts, Anthony Aniano. And joining me on this 11th of August, my partner, colleague, co host, good friend, Mr. Bobby Wah. Bobby, how are you? Essentially, a month now away from opening day.
It's exciting, man. I'm 2 days away from work. Don't love that, but I do love. We had some real football last week, right? We had a little all kind of
Carson
real
Beck
football,
experience is real.
Hall of Fame game, baby. I watched 0 seconds of it. I don't watch a whole lot. Do you watch preseason? I don't watch a whole lot of it.
Um, I watch a little bit, probably of especially week two, where you see a little more of the starters. Um, all I care about is playing time and see like for example, I will be curious to see what the kid Stribling, the wide receiver for the 49ers, does he get a lot of play, or and it's an interesting conversation, or does he not get a lot of play? And I'm almost like I'm almost curious, like I don't want him to get a lot of play because if he doesn't get a lot of play while the start with the other starters, right, tells me ooh, because reports are he's like the best play, he's like the best wide receiver in camp right now for San Fran. So things like that always pique my interest. Who had a strong performance, but who didn't play because they're being like people say, kept in bubble wrap. So I look for things like that. Otherwise, I am not the person, and you see these people on Twitter or social media, and I might not outwardly mock them, but internally I do mock them. They put a picture on social media where they have three computer screens and five TVs, and they claim to be studying all the games and analyzing the preseason. And I look at them, and I could say this here, and I go, you're either A, completely full of shit, or B, so desperate for social media clout that I strongly feel like your real world social skills are in a dangerously disastrous place. So you will never see me be that person, because I just don't think it's like like go and get married and have a kid, dude, and have some real life responsibilities. That's all. But that's just me. What about you?
Well, I don't know if I could. Next time I ask you a question, you should be more honest. Maybe a little more candid as well. It'd be nice. Beating around the bush, man. I don't really like it.
Do you
Now, for me,
have you seen those people on
oh
social
yeah,
media?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. The see the thing with the preseason is so much like crystal ball looking, because we could both sit next to each other watching the same game, and you're like, oh, um, Chris Rodriguez got the first carry, and I say, well, that's because he's the lead back, and you say, well, no, they want to save Bashal Tutin, and
Right.
we're both right, we're both wrong.
Yeah.
So I do get curious, like to see, who's going to get the first run out of the backfield for the Cardinals. Is it going to be Jeremiah Love? Is it going to be Tyler Algier? Is it James Conner, who the coach was talking about? So little things like that I like to look at, but it's hard for me to take a whole lot of stock in these games that don't count for anything.
Right. I mean, the Indianapolis Colts already announced Daniel Jones will not play in the preseason. The Detroit Lions said Jared Goff will not play in the preseason. So at that point, you go, well, how much can I ever evaluate on either of those offenses without the
Right.
QB1 on the field? So,
Absolutely.
like if the coach doesn't think it's that important, like then that to me is more telling than anything else. Yes, Carson Beck looked great in the preseason game, and there was not a single starter on the opposing defense. So Carson Beck, running with the twos, played very well against the opposing twos. Congratulations. Now, do I think he becomes a starter in Arizona? Yes. I think they have to see what they have in him. But that's going to be a real different game, when he's going up against the Rams in LA, and Myles Garrett and my prediction, Aaron Donald, are getting after him. Right? Like, there's your evaluation. I don't care what the twos are doing against the twos. Yes, you played well. You were the best of the twos. You were the best guy on JV. Congratulations.
If I am a starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals and I have an upcoming game with Miles Garrett and Aaron Donald, I might, I
You're
might,
riding the stationary bike real slow on the sidelines. That's what you're doing.
I might, I might get a little cough before that game. Might have to sit that one out, buddy.
Yeah.
Woo, that'd be tough. Those two dudes are something.
Yeah, it's going to be something to watch. But anyway, we digress. So here we are. We preview. We get you ready for your fantasy football season to the best of our abilities. So far, we've done, I believe, 4 shows this summer. Quarterback, a couple of running back shows, and our first wide receiver show today. We're going to talk more of the wide receivers. Now, if we don't talk about Puka Nacua and Jamar Chase and that top group of tight wide receivers, it's because we did it last week. So go back and check that out. We're going to talk now in that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range of players, kind of players in the mid-teens all the way up into the 30s type of players we may like, players who can improve their stock. And we'll get each other's takes on a few of these guys. And the first guy I wanted to ask you about was Emeka Egbuka. All right, with the Tampa Bay Bucks. He's kind of in a similar tier with a lot of other wide receivers who have upside, who have flash potential and talent. Guys like Garrett Wilson, Rashee Rice, Ladd McConkey. A group of wide receivers who I think are solid wide receiver 2s can become wide receiver 1s if things go the right way for them. Egbuka now, Baker healthy, and I think even bigger than Baker healthy, Mike Evans playing in San Francisco. Is there in your mind any real competition on that Tampa Bay roster preventing Emeka Egbuka from emerging as Baker Mayfield's go-to guy? Like, is McMillan or any of those guys anything close to Egbuka in your eyes?
No, not close at all. We talked about him a little bit on last week's show, and I had mentioned like there's a lot of similarities between him and JSN, and not just they
Yeah.
both went to Ohio State and dominated there, but in the NFL too. Like last year, JSN as rookies, JSN and Emeka Egbuka had this exact same amount of catches, and Ibuka's yards per catch are higher than JSN. Had a couple more touchdowns, but very similar outputs. And then JSN goes and loses DK Metcalf. He goes off to Pittsburgh, and next thing you know, we have the wide receiver 2, JSN, and Emeka Egbuka. Now he loses Mike Evans, like you mentioned, and Chris Godwin. He's put together some pretty sturdy fantasy seasons. His problem is always staying healthy, staying on the field. I still think he's a solid receiver, especially in real life. But as far as fantasy goes, he's not going to come anywhere near Ibuka. Jalen McMillan's he battles injuries as well. Not worried about him. If I'm worried about anyone taking passes away from Ibuka, it's probably Kenny Gainwell with his pass catching chops he showed last year in Pittsburgh. However, I have Emeka Egbuka all the way up as my wide receiver 12.
Wow.
For me, as much as I loved him coming out of college and as he put on an absolute show the first 5 weeks, over 18 points per game over the first 5 weeks with a healthy Baker Mayfield, he is, in my opinion, one of the few players that I think could make an absolute catapult jump to be a top 5 wide receiver at the end of the year.
Love it. In that same, consensus grouping is Luther Burden of the Chicago Bears. Now, Burden goes down with a groin injury this week. He's going to miss the entire preseason. The Bears are quote unquote hopeful that Luther Burden is ready for week 1. Now remember, Roman Dunze dealt with a foot last year. It never really materialized. Everybody wants to put Luther Burden in that next guy, that next stratosphere guy. Your wide receiver 2 who becomes the star. As soon as I said his name, though, you made a face. And it wasn't a happy face. It was a you've got a bellyache, you had too much junk food last night face. So is that face because Burden is hurt, or would you have made that face even if Burden was healthy?
Even with Burden being healthy, I'm making that face, dude. I do not understand the Luther Burden love. I will have him on exactly zero of my fantasy teams, and it's not that I hate him as a player and don't.
Drafting a bare wide receiver. Burden, who's going as a wide receiver two, Odunze, who's going as a wide receiver three. Are you even considering Odunze then
That is app.
to emerge there?
Yeah, for me, the fact that Burden is going above and ahead of Adunze is absolutely insane.
Okay.
So I have I have Adunze as my wide receiver 20. I have Burden as my wide receiver 32. So like I said, I have Burden so low, there's no way I'm going to have him on my team. And look, I would love to have him on my team. I think he's going to be able to do some things to help your fantasy squads out, but just not for me. I'm not taking him there. Dude, he was wide receiver 50 last year. Okay, I get it. Took him a while to get rolling and getting that offense and all that stuff. Dude, the last time I checked, he was wide receiver 21 in ADP, and it's very difficult for me to see that happening and him paying off at that draft spot. We always want to do that thing where a coach goes somewhere. It's like, oh, this is the new so and so. Dude. I've heard people say, well, he might have the Amon-Ra St. Brown role in Ben Johnson's offense. Not a chance. He's not Amon-Ra. They're very different players. And it's just absurd that people do that. My guy was 87th last year in average depth of target. I'm watching, and now he's hurt, not even gonna might not even be ready for week one. So that's makes me super out on him. Um, and this doesn't help. So I gotta tell you who he reminded me of when I was watching game film, like when I was doing when he was coming out of college, and I'm watching him. I keep getting this like these similarities. And so I look, two players almost the same size, very similar playing styles, great after the catch, that kind of thing, almost selected in the exact same draft spot. And that's LaVisca Chenault. I got LaVisca Chenault vibes watching Luther Burden play, and
It's not
it's
good.
not, it's not good, man. It's not good at all.
I'm not a smart man, but I know that's not good.
Dude, and I mean, Adunze, if you remember, he was like, what was he, wide receiver 5 before he hurt his foot? And that foot
Yeah.
bothered him all year long. I mean, he was what, the 10th overall pick when they took him? He is the wide receiver one for this team. And I don't think it's close. I mean, he was 17th in first read target share. That probably goes up with DJ Moore out of town. So I just don't see Luther Burden being able to surpass Odunze or even come close to the production he's going to have.
All right, fair enough. Now, another wide receiver I want to get your take on, and I believe he was the same draft as Roman Dunze. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that's Ted McMillan. If I remember correctly, and I am getting older, McMillan was the first wide receiver taken in that draft, and then it was on Dunze. Am I right?
No, so McMillan was a rookie this past year. He was offensive rookie of the year.
It was year two. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, Odunze went in the Marvin Harrison draft. Um, Malik Neighbors, he was third, I think, because I think Harrison and Neighbors went before him. Third, I think.
Yes. Harrison. Yes. Okay. So McMillan last year was a rookie. And I am correct in saying was the first wide receiver. Well, I say first wide receiver because I don't include the kid in Jacksonville. Um,
Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter. I don't include him when I say it. He's a jack of all trades, an expert at none. Um, so Ted McMillan was to me the first true wide receiver taken in that draft, right?
Yeah.
Last year for rookie, 70 catches, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, 7 targets per game. It's a lot to like there. A lot to like there. Why is he a fringe, being drafted at least, as a fringe wide receiver too? Like, why is it because of Bryce Young? I mean, he had success his first year with him, relatively. Are people too down on a guy who, in theory, should take the next step this year in year two?
Yeah, Ted's an interesting study, and I do believe most of it is tied to that quarterback, Bryce Young. Because if he's with somebody else, if he's with, Matt Stafford or, somebody else, I think we look at him a little bit differently. It took me a while to get on him. I wasn't huge. let me rephrase this. I liked him coming out of college last year. I thought he was a very good player. I thought Jaden Higgins was a very similar player that I knew you could get later. So it took me a while to get on the Tet train, but by the end of the year, I mean, he really showed that he can be a number one alpha type wide receiver in this league. And there's not really anyone else to throw to, which you love. But oh, he was also ninth in first read targets, which is amazing. You got to have that. He did not get, if memory serves me right, to a 30% target share. I want to say he was like 25-ish or something. You want to see him get to that 30% target share as to be a true alpha. But again, Bryce Young is holding him back. This whole offense is really holding him back. And he had a game, I think, where he had 29 fantasy points, which the ceiling is amazing. You love that. That's winning you a fantasy week. But over half of his games, nine of them, he scored under 10 points. So although you like how he finished as a rookie wide receiver, 15.5 point PPR, you didn't necessarily love the ride that it took to get there.
Now, when you look at these wide receivers in that those late teens, early 20s, now there are, and based on the rankings I'm looking at, it's a mix of young players and veterans, right? Like there's Luther Burden, there's Egbuka, there's Ted McMillan. But at the same time, close to them are veterans, guys like Devontae Adams and Mike Evans. If you're drafting and that block of player, that tier of player are all there, and you're saying, all right, I need my second wide receiver. I've got some young guys. I've got some veterans. Veterans have the back of the card that you kind of know what's going to happen. How do you play that out in the draft? Are you taking the upside of, and I know you like Egbuka, so let's pull him out of that because you have him higher than a lot of the rankings do. But are you taking the upside, potential upside of a Burden, of an Ndunze, of a McMillan? Or are you taking the safety of a veteran like a Mike Evans or Devontae Adams?
Well, a lot of that's going to depend on who my wide receiver one is, because I certainly don't want any of these folks being my wide receiver one. And if I have a safe wide receiver one, I want a ceiling. Um, if I don't, then a floor play might be a little bit better. However, for me, Devontae Adams and Evans, I have them down a tier beneath Tet. And Devontae Adams, if touchdowns are so tricky. And Devontae Adams at what, 33 years old, led the NFL in touchdown receptions.
14
That's
touchdowns, just six touches, 700 yards. But remember, he was injured down the stretch, and they kind of rested him for the playoffs. 14 touchdowns. And he did target, even with Puka, he was targeted 8.1 times per game. So the targets were there, even as the second option on that offense.
Yeah, but for me, I cannot. It's very difficult for me to see those touchdowns repeating themselves, and that's for Adams. I mean, and also you got to think. There's no way that you can, and this is a narrative, and I'm not a huge narrative guy. Some people love them and run with them, and that's their thing. Not me. However, you can't tell me that the Rams weren't chasing an MVP for Stafford. So they get to the 1 yard line instead of handing to Kyron, which is what they've done
Yeah.
for 2 years previously. They're doing little fade routes to Devontae. You can't tell me there wasn't a little something going on there with Stafford. And
So
then
what
Evans.
are you afraid of? Devontae not being able to repeat the 14 touchdowns, or Mike Evans playing for a new team at this point in his career?
Um, I'm probably shooting for the Evans side of that. Simply, well, not simply, but one reason being is that I don't know who they're going to throw to. I mean, Ricky Pearsall's already out for the year, which is unreal, and I feel so bad for him. And they brought in Debo Samuel, I get, but look, Evans and Debo, they got to be the oldest top two receivers on any team in the NFL. I mean, I'm just guessing there, but they're both in their 30s. So I'm not too worried about what Debo's going to take away from Evans. So he's going to be the guy in a Mike Shanahan offense, which I think is a little bit exciting. So I lean Evans there ever so slightly because I just can't see Devontae Adams. I mean, what is less than 800 yards and 14? He was a touchdown a game. because I
Yeah.
think he missed three. That's absurd.
Quick news. Yeah, we don't often break news here, but we're going to break a little news.
I like it.
In a one of the most unsurprising announcements of the preseason, Kyler Murray has been named the starting quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings.
Love that.
That I just got an alert about 10 minutes ago. I don't think it's a surprise, but there you go. Kyler will be the starting, and good for Minnesota. We're not dragging this out. We're not doing this during the preseason. Kyler's our guy. We all kind of knew it. Let's all move on with our day, everybody. And there you go.
And that makes me feel a lot better after our Justin Jefferson talk last week when I have him as my wide receiver five. I know, listen, Kyler Murray's, it's scary that excites me. However, I needed that to happen for me to feel any bit of confidence towards my Justin Jefferson predictions.
In my Scott Fishbowl draft, Kyler Murray was my second quarterback in a super flex league. Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Sam Darnold were the three I took. I don't think, and we'll go back to wide receivers in a second. I don't think Kyler Murray is a must start week in and week out. I believe Minnesota week one plays against Green Bay. So I don't know if I run him out there against the Packers. It's like, do I play him against the Packers or do I play Sam Darnold against the Patriots?
We got you got to think Darnold was honestly terrible last year. I threw out a stat. We talked about him in the quarterback show briefly, where I mean, he averaged like 14 points a game or something ridiculous last year. But you got to think Green Bay, if you want to roll him out there, no Michael Parsons, not till like week 6, I just read.
And they were a different team once Parsons went down. I mean, there was no denying how
Yeah.
much different that defense was. Let me ask you another wide receiver question now. One of the most confound teams to draft. We don't usually do it by team, but if you have 3 wide receivers, maybe 4, you can almost say you have too many for fantasy. And that's how I feel about the Jacksonville Jaguars. You got Parker Washington, 847 yards, 5 touchdowns. You have Brian Thomas, who was a huge disappointment after the fantastic rookie year the year before, 707 catches, 2 touchdowns. And then they traded for, if you remember in the middle of the year, they traded for Jacoby Myers. And Jacoby Myers, 835 yards, 3 touchdowns. And you mentioned Travis Hunter, who was drafted thinking he was going to be the guy. And Jacksonville has kind of already pivoted away from that, saying, we're going to play him more at corner and we'll have special packages for him at wide receiver. Travis Hunter's not on my draft board. I really haven't seen him going at all much. However, I have seen the other 3 go. And when I've seen the other 3 go, Parker Washington, Brian Thomas, and Jacoby Myers, they're going right next to each other. Like they're right there. Boom, boom, boom. And I always say, if I have to draft, if 3 wide receivers from the same team are going within 20 picks of each other, I don't like any of them. And how are you breaking that down? Parker Washington has been the first one off the boards. He seems to be the highest rated in most rankings. Part of me is like, was Brian Thomas just a bad year? Are we forgetting about 2 years ago? And Jacoby's been a reliable veteran. So how are you looking at that Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver room?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. All those names so close together. And the problem is, you put me, you, and another guy in a room, one of us is going to be right. And we're going to think the other 2 guys are idiots.
Usually me.
Right. But and someone is going to be right? It's going to be one of these guys, unless, of course, it's like it was last year and it was none of these guys.
But that's my
So
it has to be one of those guys. You could have 3 wide receivers there, each with 700 to 850 yards, which makes all 3 of them kind of tough.
Yeah, and I am steering clear of most of these guys. However, I kind of want to get Brian Thomas Jr. in a couple teams. I feel like the every year there's slogans that come out that are like, I don't know, every catches on, everyone uses them. This year I feel like it's buy the dip. I've heard so many fantasy analysts say buy the dip on whatever players. That being said,
I,
it feels like that.
I say dip. What's that song?
Freak Nasty, the dip,
Yeah,
like 1994, maybe. That's good
wedding song.
stuff.
Wedding
Oh,
song.
okay, back on track. Oh, no, but for me, it's BTJ. We like you said, I feel like we're really forgetting what he was able to do. And I was not a BTJ guy whenever he was coming out. So Brian Thomas Jr. for me is the one I'll take a shot at because I know his ceiling is literally wide receiver four. That's what he was as a rookie. And yeah, maybe he had a bad year. They say he was a little banged up and didn't feel too great out there. But if I'm Liam Cohen, now you listen, don't forget, Liam Cohen does not care about our fantasy teams. He wants to win football games. And if that means Parker Washington gets 9 targets one game and Brian Thomas Jr. gets it the next and Jacoby Myers gets it the next, that's what he's going to do. But that being said, we've seen it with Brian Thomas Jr. And if I'm picking a guy, those middle rounds, I don't really want a floor play there. I'd love a good ceiling play, and you get that, in my opinion, with Brian Thomas.
Are you buying DJ Moore in Buffalo?
Dude, I don't know. I can't. If you ask me today, I say I think I am. If you ask me tomorrow, it might be different. So the thing with Buffalo is they have been dying for a true wide receiver one. Ever since Diggs left, the highest a wide receiver has finished in fantasy for that team is or Khalil Shakir at wide receiver 38. That's the highest wide receiver finish they've had since Diggs left. And they bring in DJ Moore as a similar player to Diggs. They're both old. You realize this is the ninth year of DJ Moore's career. He's been playing
Hmm.
almost a decade. That being said, as far as talent goes, he's definitely the most talented guy they've had for a while. So I think I'm in. I have him at wide receiver 26. I don't know what his ADP is at the moment. I don't know if that means I'm high on him, low on him, about right.
DJ
But
Moore's ADP on Yahoo is 56. Player 50.
overall,
Overall 56.
gotcha. I have him as wide receiver 26. So that probably means I'm probably close.
DJ Moore or Christian Watson? You're on the clock.
Dude, they're so close for me. I'm going DJ Moore.
Moore's
Watson,
86. Watson is 50.
I like the ceiling that Watson has. But I've ridden the Watson train more than one season now, and it's not a good one. He's going to miss games, and I know that they lost Romeo Dobbs and Dontavian Wicks, and that sounds great. But they still have Matthew Golden, a first round wide receiver that I'm not a big fan of. He's going late enough now though in drafts. I don't mind taking a shot on him as my wide receiver five. Um, but I think Moore's going to give you more of a floor with some ceiling games, whereas Watson's floor is literally zero. His floor is he goes out, runs one route, pulls his hamstring, and that's it.
I'm going to give you three players with their FFPC ADPs.
Okay.
Okay. Terry McLaurin is at 51. DJ Moore is at 54. Watson is at 59. You're on the clock at pick 50. You need a wide receiver. Are you locked in 100% on Terry McLaurin?
I actually I have DJ Moore as my wide receiver 26. I have McLaurin as wide receiver 27, and I have Christian Watson at 31. So they're all right there. That being
Fair
said,
enough.
I actually I might end up moving McLaurin up a spot or two because of Diggs showing up. And that probably sounds weird. Like, why would you move a guy up because a team signed another wide receiver, a very good wide receiver at 1,000 yards receiving last year in Stephon Diggs? But I think it helps. McLaurin is the only guy there. There's no one else for anyone to cover. I mean, rookie Antonio Williams, maybe. You worry about Luke McCaffrey? I'm not. So you get Stephon Diggs there. That's going to pull away some coverage from McLaurin. And the biggest issue is Laramie Tunsil, the left tackle for Washington, going down. He's one of the best left tackles in the football. So that's big problem for them. However, I think Diggs coming in might boost McLaurin just a little bit. What do you think about that?
I agree. You needed somebody else to pay attention to there.
Right.
They
It's
tried
not
to
the
do
right.
that They tried. That's why there was all those Brandon Ayuk rumors,
Mhm.
and they tried with Debo, and it didn't work. And it didn't work because Daniels then got hurt and everything else. But you needed something else. You needed something else, and now you've got it. Now I'm not saying Stephon Diggs is, the guy who led the league in yards like he did years ago and everything else. But he even admitted it. I could be the best second wide receiver on the team, the best wide receiver, and he knows his role. He knows his role. It's going to be, you can't cheat safeties anymore. You got to keep people on his side of the field, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it opens things up a little bit, just maybe enough for Terry McLaurin. I want to ask you about another guy. And this time last year, you and I sat here and we both called this guy one of the most underrated players in fantasy football, wide receiver. He proceeded to have 1,000-yard year. He had over 70 catches. He had 7 touchdowns. That guy, can you remember who it is?
Oh, absolutely not. That's why I like this because I have no idea what's going to come out of your mouth.
That's what my wife said. Um, it was Courtland Sutton.
Mm,
If you remember that conversation.
yes, yes. I'm a Sutton guy, dude.
Those underrated players we said in fantasy football. Now, the Denver Broncos have made some changes, right? They have added Jalen Waddle, who is going at an FFPC ADP as 44. Overall, 44 in a 12-team FFPC. He's going, 4th round, coming off a 900-yard season in Miami. Courtland Sutton is going at 96. Okay, ranked. He's being drafted as essentially a wide receiver 4. He's being drafted as a wide receiver 4. I have never been a Jalen Waddle guy. Maybe because he never really had the opportunity to be the alpha male in the wide receiver room in Miami. I've never drafted though at the same time where I was like, oh man, I got to get Courtland Sutton. It's always been, all right, I guess I'll take Courtland Sutton. You look at Denver now, Bo Nix healthy, running back room, J.K. Dobbins and everything else, Jonah Coleman, the rookie. Is Sutton being ranked too low? Is Waddle being ranked too high? Will you, to use a phrase you just used, will you buy the dip on Courtland Sutton? How you treating that?
Yeah, dude, this opens up a lot for me. I got so much going through my brain right now. I'm a Sutton guy.
A lot of emotions.
Yeah, dude, I know. I do. I've loved Sutton forever.
You're
And
your 2 tenths.
what's that?
I said you're between a teepee and a wigwam. You're 2 tenths.
Okay. Can't do that. Not going to crack me with that one, buddy. Not going
What?
to get me with that one. Not happening. But so if I told you 2 years ago, I got a guy. 2 years ago, he's wide receiver 13. Last year, he's wide receiver 11. You can have him at pick 96. That is so absurd. Now, Sutton, he's not going to give you a huge ceiling. He had 2 games of over 20 points, but that's not what he's doing. The last 2 years combined, he's got 6 games of under 5 points. He's got 20 games of double-digit point production for you. That's consistency, especially if you're getting him as forget wide receiver 2. You're getting him as a wide receiver 3, 4. I mean, it's down there. And I know Waddle coming in is going to change things. It's going to change that offense. We just talked about maybe Stephon Diggs coming into the offense is going to help Terry McLaurin. Why can't Waddle help Sutton? Now, I don't know how much room Sutton has to grow. Wide receiver 11 last year. What are we doing? I mean, how much work is Waddle actually going to take from him? And I've liked Waddle in the past, but I don't understand the ADP. I actually have Sutton ranked higher than Waddle. Now they're separated by 2 spots, I think, 2 or 3 spots. So it's very close. But Bo Nix already has trust in Sutton. They've already worked together. And Waddle and Sutton have very different games. Sutton's going to be that red zone target. He's going to be that third down guy that, when you need it, let's get it to this guy who we already trust. Um, and this is why it's super important for me, I believe you do your own rankings, but you also do mock drafts and know ADP, especially the site you're drafting from. Because for me, if I just look at my rankings, I draft Sutton way too high. If I just look at ADP, I might miss out on a guy that I think is way better than where he's going. So I know, if I look at my ADP, I should be drafting Sutton in the third, fourth round, but I know I don't have to because I know ADP. So just a little draft nugget in there for you. But for me, man, I love Sutton. I see no reason to get off of him.
All right, let's go. There's two other teams with, I guess, unclear wide receiver ones. And I'm going to give you the team, their names, and then the ADPs, and tell me which player you prefer. Arizona Cardinals. Marvin Harrison, FFPC ADP of 72. Michael Wilson, who was a league winner down the stretch last year. Don't forget that. Michael Wilson, FFPC ADP of 110. Tell me who.
Give me Marvin Harrison. But this is it, dude. This is it. This is your last chance.
Time for Marvin Harrison. Am I right?
What's that?
Shut up or shut up.
Oh, absolutely, man. Now, look, he had 3 games of more than 7 targets last year. Only 3 games of more than 7 targets, and he had basically at least 13 fantasy points in each one of those things, each one of those games. If they actually treat him like a wide receiver one, he performs like a wide receiver one. Michael Wilson, man, dude, Harrison went down to week 10. Michael Wilson averaged almost 18 points per game from week 11 on. He averaged 4.5 points before Harrison went down. It's very difficult for me to get behind Michael Wilson, and people think they have him ranked higher than Marvin Harrison. I don't understand it.
The problem is, too, in that offense, is whoever is the second wide receiver is the third option. Right?
Right.
It's McBride, then the wide receiver, then this guy. So you got to get it right. If you're going to draft an Arizona wide receiver, you got to nail it and get it right. All right, here's another team. And there's nothing more I want to see than this team be terrible this year. And that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Rodgers needs to go away in so many facets of his life. Now, that being said, and it has nothing to do with politics. It just has to do with the attention-seeking behavior that drives me nuts. Okay, fair enough. There you go. You said it. It's the pay attention. I need to stay relevant, so let me do whatever I got to do. But anyway, nonetheless, Pittsburgh's given him 2 wide receivers. They traded for DK 2 years ago, and then they bring in Pittman from Indianapolis this year. Now, their ADPs are even closer than the situation in Arizona in the FFPC. DK Metcalf is 86. Didn't really work great for DK last year with Aaron Rodgers, right? I think that needs to be stated and acknowledged. If you drafted DK Metcalf last year, you weren't overly thrilled. 850 yards and 6 touchdowns. He was a flex bye-week fill-in. And then you had Michael Pittman leaving, who's had nice seasons in Indianapolis. He now was there last year, though. 80 catches, 784 yards, 7 touchdowns, 6.5 targets per game. Now, Metcalf, ADP 86, Pittman, ADP 97. Do either of them outperform that ADP and become worth the draft pick? Or is it a situation you're like, this Pittsburgh offense just is not going to be exciting at all? It's an all-star team from 5 years ago, and I don't care about it now.
Well, it's interesting you say that because you think about this Pittsburgh offense and the dink and dunk and Aaron Rodgers can't throw the ball deep and all that stuff. And it's true. They scored more points last year as a team than Green Bay, Philly, the Chargers, Kansas City. Like the offense wasn't the worst. That being said, though, I do think there's something to Rodgers and wanting to get out quick. He's old. He's not holding on to that thing. That's why his running backs had 1 million catches last year. And so that severely hurts DK Metcalf. Even though he's going into I don't know, sixth, seventh season in the NFL, his route tree is still what it is. He's running 9 routes, he's running posts, uh, long, winded and time consuming routes. Michael Pittman, that's not his game. Michael Pittman's going to be more short field, across the middle, digs, things like that. And I mean, he's produced Pittman consistently. Carson Wentz, late career Matt Ryan, Sam Ellinger, Nick Foles, Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson, Joe Flacco, Philip Rivers, Riley Leonard. Michael Pittman has put up decent at worst, decent at worst fantasy numbers for you, with these bums throwing in the football. And I wonder, my answer is Pittman for sure. I
Okay.
wonder if if he had Jared Goff was his quarterback for his career, or even Baker Mayfield, I feel like we would definitely view Michael Pittman differently. He was wide receiver 22 last. He was a wide receiver 2 for us just
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah. Here's another one. Las Vegas Raiders. Kirk Cousins, and then you got Mendoza eventually, right? People have talked about Trey Tucker. They've hyped him up. ADP of 160. And they signed Jalen Naylor. Now, Jalen Naylor, I just saw a report, has been, quote, the best wide receiver in Raiders camp and an ADP of 165. Somebody there, other than Brock Bowers, has to catch the ball, right? Somebody does. Trey Tucker last year, 57 catches, 696. Jalen Naylor, not really a starter last year, only 3 targets per game, getting the opportunity now to be a guy with the Raiders. 444 yards, 4 touchdowns. Any interest, either one of them? It would be a reserve role on your fantasy team. But if you needed to stash one of the Raiders receivers as a bench play with upside, right? You're looking in the 13th round. It's the 14th round. Your buddies are drunk and they're drafting kickers, and you don't even have kickers in your league anymore. Is there a Raider wide receiver you're like, maybe I'm going to drop this guy in week 3, week 4, but I'm going to draft him just in case he emerges early on?
You saying that Jalen Naylor is the best wide receiver in Raiders camp is like saying this pile of poop doesn't smell as bad as the other piles of poop. I want nothing to do with this wide receiver core if I am forced by gunpoint to draft a Raider wide receiver. I'm going Malik Benson. He's a rookie. Dude can fly, coming out of Oregon, if memory serves me right. And the guy can make some plays, later round draft pick, maybe 5th round, if I'm remembering correctly. But if I got to throw my hat in the Raider ring, I'm going to take Malik Benson.
Okay. My final conversation I want to have with you for today. What rookie wide receiver ends up being the best for fantasy purposes this year?
Oh, that's tough. Can I give you a dark horse that
Give me whatever.
you didn't think a few weeks ago, but hey, maybe Denzel Boston out of Cleveland. Now I know we don't want any Cleveland wide receivers, but
Yeah.
he got a little hype in spring, and as summer's gone on, that hype has. I mean, it's like we're yelling in a megaphone now. He's
Yeah.
apparently dominating with camp, whatever that means, as far as I don't know how high the bar is in Cleveland, but he was very talented coming out. I thought he could have snuck into the first round of the real NFL draft. So hey, I don't mind betting there. I mean, who else? It's not going to be Mekhi Lemon. I think he was my favorite wide receiver coming out. That's not going to be him this year. He's going to
They're
have
not
some.
saying don't expect to be involved early in the season because he's been slowed by injury, right?
Right. Yeah. And Dontavian Wicks, dude, I mean, he is free in drafts. I don't mind throwing a late round dart on Wicks because the Philly offense is not going to throw the ball very much. So there's not going to be a whole lot of meat left on the bone after Devonta Smith and Goddard and Barkley get theirs. But if you're throwing late
What
round
about
darts, I mean,
Tyson?
yes, I worry so much about his injuries, and we're not supposed to do that. But I mean, that's his life. His whole life he's been hurt. He's like the Michael Penix of wide receivers. You know what I mean? He's amazing when he's on the field, but it's just, at least in college,
And
but
you're
it's
not
hard to
buying.
get him to stay there. Carnell Tate,
No, you're not buying it.
Not really. I'm not buying. Well, I would love to buy Carnell Tate. It's tough for me to buy Carnell Tate and um, Cam Ward and that offense as a whole.
Who is Cam Ward's best receiver this year? Tate, Wandell Robinson, or the veteran Calvin Ridley?
It's Wandale, and I don't think it's close. Yeah, I mean now Tate has the highest upside, and I have Tate a little bit higher than Wandale, but I have Wandale way higher than most people. I mean, I got Wandale in my 30s, I think, as far as my wide receiver rankings. Yeah, wide receiver 39, and I have Tate at 32. Tate's got the ceiling, but Wandale, man, he's produced 2 years in a row for your Giants. 100, what do you have? 140 some targets last year. And guess who his offensive coordinator is? Who's calling the plays? Brian Dable, who already loves Wandale Robinson.
Remember, Wandell took off after Neighbors got hurt. He was the last man standing there.
I don't see Malik Neighbors on this team. Carnell Tate's not Malik Neighbors.
Yeah. I mean, Wandell had, I think, 92 catches 2 years in a row. What was amazing is 2 years ago, he had 92 catches, and I think Bailey had over 700 receiving yards. Last year, it was amazing. 92 catches. Each catch went for like 3 yards. At least last year, he was over 1,000. He had the 4 touchdowns. His target was off the charts, 8.8 targets per game last year for the New York Giants, did Wandell Robinson. Giants weren't even really interested in bringing him back. He went right to Tennessee.
That's higher than Devontae Adams targets per game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Wandell's was not big enough to go up and get 14 touchdown passes. That's his problem.
Right.
But Devontae's probably a foot taller than him. So, final thing. Give me one sleeper wide receiver in the final round. Go.
Well, I don't have ADP in front of me, but if I'm going to throw a random dart at the end, I don't mind. And I hate saying this out loud because I don't like him. I didn't like him. But maybe Matthew Golden because he should be the number 2 wide receiver on the field for the Green Bay Packers.
On him
He was
here.
what?
Are people giving up on him too soon after 1 year?
No, so they're probably giving up on him at just the right time. But we're talking last round. They drafted him in the first round for a reason, and that's in their heads. That's in the front office mind. So why not put him out there, throw him some deep shots, see what he's got, and maybe catch fire.
I agree with you. I'll draft Golden with where he's going. Like you said, he was drafted in the first round for a reason. Jaden Reed is there. I get it. Watson is there. I don't think Matthew Golden goes away. I think there's more of a role for him potentially this season, and let people underestimate him. They're 22, 23-year-old second-year players. And there are some people who, after one subpar rookie year, they put their career in a coffin. And I just think that's premature. So there you go. All right, my friend, we are out of time. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And if you haven't seen us before, go back and check out the quarterback, the 2 running backs, and now 2 wide receiver preview shows. Next week, Bobby and I will be back. We're going to talk a little tight ends. Bob's been doing his squats, so he's an expert on it. And we're all good. Bob, my friend, this is always fun.
Oh, dude, absolutely. Love it. Thank you all for listening. And as always, Mr. Aniano, you are the man.
I just wake up and try my best. I have no professional training. So this is Clipboard Confessional with Bobby and Anthony. Again, thank you everybody for listening. Have a good one, folks.
See ya.